Okay. Hey, before I take the next call, I wanted to mention the other bill that was stuck into the health care bill was a new student loan program, a complete disaster. Now, everybody knows that I am a big critic of government-guaranteed student loans, right? The reason that college tuition is so expensive is because the government has guaranteed loans to make it to borrow money to pay whatever inflated prices universities want to charge. If students didn't have access to those government guarantees, college prices would be falling so that students can afford to go, as opposed to rising because they have Uncle Sam's piggy, pocketbook to pick. But what did the government do? What did Barack Obama now do? He has abolished the guaranteed student loan program, right? So there are going to be no more banks, issuing government guaranteed student loans, right? That would be a great thing, except what we're going to get instead is even worse. Now what's going to happen is the government is going to loan directly to students to go to college. Now, of course, first thing is the government doesn't have any money to loan, right? The government is in debt. The government is trillions in debt. We're running a $1.5 trillion deficit right now. How is the government going to loan anybody money to go to college when the government is broke? So obviously, whatever money the government loans to a college student, the government's going to have to borrow it. And, of course, who has to pay it back? Well, the same college student when he graduates, if he could get a job. But that's number one. But number two is that when the government did this, now the whole thing is completely politicized. And if the first thing the government has done is they said that when the banks were doing the student loans, the interest was capped at 15% of your income. Well, now they're going to lower that to 10% of your income. Under the old system, after 25 years, if there was any balance that was unpaid, it was forgiven. And, of course, the taxpayer simply picked it up, right? Now, under the new rules, it's forgiven in 20 years. But what does this actually mean in practice? It means that if you borrow money to go to school, now you don't have to pay as much of it back as you did under the old system. Well, what does that mean? If you can borrow money but not have to pay it all back, well, you're willing to borrow even more money, right? Obviously, I mean, if I didn't have to pay any of it back, well, then people would be borrowing millions or billions, right? There's no limit. But under this system, basically, it might mean that a student that borrows $100,000 under the new system might have to pay back the same amount of money that somebody would have to pay back who borrowed $70,000 under the old system. And so what that means is that students doing the math will be more willing to assume larger loans when they know that they have less amounts to pay back. Well, the colleges can do the same math, and now they know, well, we can raise our prices even faster now because there will be even less resistance on the part of students to paying these higher prices because they can simply borrow the money from the government, not having to pay it all back. And, of course, so now what we're going to have is that college tuitions that were rising rapidly because of government-guaranteed student loans are now going to rise even more rapidly because of government-provided student loans. Now, what is the next thing the government's going to do? As tuitions rise even faster, there's going to be pressure on the government to say, well, we'll forgive the loans in 15 years. We'll forgive the loans in 10 years. Or, well, we'll cap it at 8% of your income or 5% of your income or something like that. And all that's going to do is feed the rally even more, just like they did with Fannie and Freddie. Fannie and Freddie were guaranteeing mortgages, so housing prices kept rising. But every time they got to the limit of what Fannie and Freddie would insure, they raised the limit so that the prices could keep going up. But, of course, it was because the limits were being raised, they were pulling the prices up. So this is going to escalate the education crisis of runaway prices, I think, to the point that they ultimately try to make education and entitlement, which is probably what these guys want. They probably want everybody in America to go to college for free, on the government, on the taxpayer. And, of course, then it's really going to cost us a lot, even more money to educate our kids. And, of course, they won't even get educated. They'll just be indoctrinated. They'll be in school learning nothing, and they'll graduate with no employment opportunities because all of the resources that would have been needed to grow the economy would have been squandered on education. and not real education. I mean, when you say we're wasting money on education, people like to say, well, aren't you in favor of education? Yeah, I just don't want to overpay for it, right? I like education. I don't like paying $1,000 for $100 worth of education, right? But in Washington, if you're against spending, then you're against education, which is all nonsense. You have to understand that we don't get better education, we just get more expensive education. And we're about to get the most expensive education in the world based on this crazy policy. And of course, Barack Obama is going to say, he actually had the gall to say that this is going to save money. This is going to save taxpayers money. Now, how does Barack Obama think it's going to save money? Because he's taking the profit out of it. He's saying that the banks were earning a profit. And by socializing it and getting rid of the profits, it's going to be more efficient and will save money. Well, wait a minute. I mean, the profits make it inefficient? Well, if that's true with student loans, that's true with everything, right? He's anti-profits. Well, how is that different than Karl Marx? Right? That's the whole theory behind socialism. Take the profit out. The capitalist, the businessman, is sucking the life out of the economy, out of the workers, that profits are evil, that profits come at the expense of everybody else. I got news for Barack Obama. Take the profits out and you take the efficiency out. Take the profits out and prices rise even faster. It's profits. It's free market competition that keeps prices low. It's government monopolies. It's government bureaucracy. It's when you take the profit out and you put the bureaucracy in. That's when you get runaway prices. That's what these socialists in Washington don't understand. So this is not going to save the taxpayer money. This is going to cost the taxpayer a fortune. But that's typical for Washington. And, of course, they stuck this into the health care bill. What does this have to do with the health care bill? Absolutely nothing. But they crammed it in there anyway, right? No debate, no nothing. Shove it in there, and it gets passed. Look, that's what's wrong with this country. That's what's wrong with Washington. That's why I'm running for the United States Senate. Just on the shot, on the 1 in a million, whatever it is, that I can actually do something to put an end to this before they put an end to the country. Anyway, next caller on hold is Chris.